Welcome to Labor Union TV. I'm Bill Floyd. I'm your host. I was a member of 3 AFL-CIO unions. The last one was the Writers Guild of America. The one before that was the National Association of Letter Carriers, those are the mailmen, and the Communication Workers of America, that's the phone workers. Today's show starts with Pope Francis, who in the Vatican gives a speech to the entire Vatican about how gross inequality today in today's society is destroying democracy. Now, you don't hear the Pope talking about democracy very often, but he is now, and he links it to the extreme wealth and the extreme poverty in America and around the world. Then we go to see a movie trailer by former Labor Secretary Robert Reich. It's a trailer from his film, Inequality for All. I hope you've seen it, but if you haven't, it's a great film. Next, we'll visit with Bernie Sanders Town Hall in Washington, D.C., where he is sailing the welfare system for the wealthiest corporations. By that he means Walmart, McDonald's, Burger King, and the fast food chains. Next, we'll visit with the Washington-based SEIU, that's the Service Employees International Union's president, Mary Kay Henry, as she brings much-needed support to striking McDonald's workers.
After welcoming the participants of the Council's plenary assembly, the Pope called attention to the disparity that exists in the world between rich and poor. The growth of such inequality, he said, and participatory democracy.
Se la globalizzazione ha accresciuto notevolmente la ricchezza aggregata dell'insieme di parecchi singoli stati, essa ha anche inaspirito i divari tra i vari gruppi sociali, creando diseguaglianze e nuove povertà negli stessi paesi considerati più ricchi.
Pope Francis noted that their meeting marked the 5th anniversary of the publication of Caritas in Veritate. He said that this encyclical written by Benedict XVI is a fundamental document for the evangelization of society.
La Caritas in Veritate ha attirato l'attenzione sui benefici, ma anche sui pericoli della globalizzazione, quando essa non sia orientata al bene dei popoli.
The document argues that love and truth are essential elements in combating problems with global development. Concluding his address, the Pope reminded the members of the Pontifical Council that this encyclical is still relevant.
You ought to know about this, Mini Cooper, is it is small. We are in proportion, me and my car. My name is Robert Reich. I was Secretary of Labor under Bill Clinton. Before that, the Carter administration. Before that, I was a special aide to Abraham Lincoln. Of all developed nations, the United States has the most unequal distribution of income, and we're surging toward even greater inequality. 1928 and 2007 become the peak years for income concentration. It looks like a suspension bridge.
Last year, we made $36,000.
I probably make $50,000 a year, working 70 hours a week.
The middle class is struggling. Now, people occasionally say to me, what nation does it better? The answer is the United States. In the decades after World War II, the economy boomed, but you had very low inequality.
Do you know Robert Reich? I do indeed. He's a communist.
When I was a kid, bigger boys would pick on me. I think it changed my life. I had to protect people from the people who would beat them up economically. Who is actually looking out for the American worker? The answer is nobody. If workers don't have power, if they don't have a voice, their wages and benefits start eroding. We are losing equal opportunity in America. Any one of you who feels cynical, just consider where we have been.
Union. Fighting for justice. Fighting for justice. For all the workers. For all the workers. Everyone beggars, hold the fries, make our wages supersized. Hold the burgers, hold the fries, make our wages supersized.
Why are you here this morning? I'm here because I'm joining community leaders from all over the Bay Area to demonstrate on the value of work. We are here at a McDonald's because cooks and cashiers all across this country have joined together today to say enough is enough. We deserve 15 in a union.
Do you think this is a growing movement in the United States?
Oh my gosh, 240 cities today, 125 cities around the world. We understand there's 400 million tweets.
Candidate Clinton is going to support the $15 an hour?
I don't know. I know that she said that she was really impressed with fast food workers and domestic workers joining together to improve their lives.
Do you think she should?
I think it'd be really great if she stood with the courage of people that are trying to join together and change things for the better.
So what effect do you think it would have if she supported the $15 an hour?
I think any elected official who is willing to stand with working people who are trying to improve their jobs is good for the candidate and it's good for the whole economy.
Now, some other candidates Warren and Sanders have said they're going to be considering running. What's your view on that?
Our members welcome a robust debate in the presidential, and we've asked every candidate to respond to the question of when you work hard for a living, you ought to be able to do one job to support your family and lead a decent life.
Can you live on $15 an hour in the Bay Area?
No. We got it. That's why we need 15 in a union, because workers having the collective bargaining power to make their wages so that they can pay rent and buy food is the only way we're going to improve things.
Workers who try to join unions are fired.
Yeah.
Yes. What can you do to protect those workers who want to join unions?
I think it's building a movement that has the force and strength to get multinational corporations to come to a national bargaining table and finally raise wages in an economy where people ought to be able to lead a decent life.
What does McDonald's say about it? They did raise salaries of some of the members of McDonald's own stores.
For 10% of the workers in this country, and we think today is going to have to make McDonald's think again about how they change the lives of the millions of people in this country that are generating $5 billion in profits annually for this.
So they're making a lot of money.
They are. Yes, they can. And they pay $21 in Denmark, $19 an hour in Australia. We know this company can do it, and they do it in other parts of the world, and they need to do it in the U.S. Thank you so much, Zaria. And Guadalupe's here, the Up the Pay East Bay joining Today is about the individual fearlessness and courage of leaders like Zaria.
Amen.
Who have the guts to stand up and say, I work hard for a living. I ought to be able to lead a decent life doing one job and expect that I can complete community college and do whatever I want with my life. And today, all across this nation and around the world, in 125 cities outside the U.S., joining together with 240 cities in the U.S., people around the world are joining hands together and saying enough is enough. Corporations have to pay people enough to be able to lead a decent life, and we're proud as SEIU members here in this McDonald's and around this country to stand with the fearlessness and courage of people like Zaria.
And to the big finish tonight, an industry dominated by working moms just got a serious wake-up call. Hundreds of workers walked off their jobs across New York City yesterday. This is an unprecedented strike by mostly non-union workers. Their target is the fast food industry. Some people might think fast food employees are just teenage kids out there flipping burgers, making minimum wage until something better comes along. Not the case. The median age of a fast food employee in this country is 28 years old. 66% of fast food employees are women. On average, those women are 32 years of age or older. Fast food is dominated by adult employees. Most fast food workers are part-time. Managers keep them working under 40 hours per week to avoid paying them full benefits. Most make about $18,000 a year, just above minimum wage. The workers in New York City are asking for a raise. They want $15 an hour. I can imagine some Americans think it's a lot to ask when you're in a recession and millions of people don't even have jobs right now. They take a look at a number of different things across the country. But I want you to look at this report. A new report shows corporate profits just hit a record high. Companies are making more money than they have ever made before. The workers are simply asking for a fair deal.
It's just ridiculous that they're not willing to bargain, or they're not willing to sit down and have a contract.
Your crew workers are the ones who are generating this money for you. So please, $15 isn't a lot. Give us a raise.
Right now we're living in poverty. Like, these companies are making billions of dollars, and we are not being appreciated for the work that we do. So they're giving us like $7.25, maybe $8, and like because of that, most of these people, most of my coworkers, they actually had to rely on food stamps and other government help.
More and more Americans might need to rely on fast food wages. People at companies like Sensata and Hostess are getting laid off and looking for jobs. Fast food workers in New York City are demanding a better deal for everyone. Reporter Sarah Jaffe wrote this analysis for The Atlantic. Cheap fast food and their cheap workers impose a cost on the country in the form of food stamps, welfare through the tax code, and social safety net programs. This is a place for government to intervene and for corporations to sacrifice some of their profits by raising wages to a livable level. Reporter Sarah Jaffe joins me tonight here on The Ed Show. Great to have you with us. Excellent reporting. And your analysis, I think, is spot on. Do you think the strike was effective, and will it have an impact?
I think it scared the heck out of the bosses. I mean, all the workers went back into work today. They were accompanied by elected officials. They were accompanied by clergy, community leaders, and all but one were accepted back with no problems. One person, they attempted to fire her. There were about 100 people outside of the store within an hour holding a rally.
What do they want to do? They want to go through what union? What do they want to do? What's
They're forming an independent union. This was an organizing drive started by a group called New York Communities for Change. They do mostly community organizing, and they were working on housing issues when they started talking to fast food workers and finding out, like you said, that these are adults, that they're supporting families. I spoke to a woman yesterday who has 3 kids. She's supporting on $7.25 an hour from Burger King. And they decided to start organizing. And you know what? They're doing a pretty good job.
We've just had a big discussion in this country about income inequality. And, of course, the corporate profits are out there. But everybody knew corporate profits were through the roof before they were reported again today. Did this play into it? Did this motivate these workers?
I think everybody knows, right? The workers at Walmart know it. The workers at McDonald's and Burger King in New York know it. Everybody knows that corporations are doing just fine and that the rest of us are getting squeezed.
What kind of impact do you think this could have nationally?
Imagine fast food workers across New York suddenly getting raised to $15 an hour. This is literally the lowest of the low-paying industries. That would be a huge precedent. It would be amazing. Is
there any indication that ownership or management of these franchises would move forward and do something for these workers?
Oh, I mean, there's not an indication, but McDonald's, the franchisee doesn't set their own rules, right? The company gets to decide all the rules. They could decide to give their workers a raise, and they could set a huge example for the rest of the country.
You know, back in the day, it was high school kids that were flipping burgers and just waiting for the next best thing. I was really taken by the number of single moms and the age of the workers in this country. You think that is going to have a big impact on whether these companies decide to do something?
I mean, this is the new economy, right? Back in the day, factory jobs weren't good jobs either. They were also low-skill, low-paying jobs. The reason that they became the middle-class jobs that we know, because people organized.
Sarah, what's the next move in this movement? And is it a movement?
Oh, it's a movement. They are not giving up. They are going to keep working, and I spoke to Jonathan Weston from New York Communities for Change just before I came here, and they're hoping that more workers got energized by seeing this happen and by seeing everybody go back in today and not face reprisal.
So the next phase, you think, is what?
I'm hoping for more strikes, Ed.
You're hoping for more strikes?
Oh, yeah.
You think they'll do it?
I think they'll do it.
Do you think the 99% movement had anything to do with this?
I think that it crystallized something that was already going on in this country, that people knew about where the wealth was going, right? They knew over the last 30 years that we've seen it all going to the people at the top, and the people at the bottom were just getting squeezed. Meanwhile, their productivity's gone up. They're working harder. They're working longer.
And there has been no organized union that has gone in and led them to do this. This is very grassroots, isn't it?
This is very grassroots. This is led by a community group. This is the workers deciding what they wanted by themselves. They are asking for a union. They're forming their own independent union. It would be across the fast food franchises in the city.
This is very interesting.
It's pretty exciting.
I mean, it's a change of the times, and they are speaking up. It's one to follow. Sarah Jaffe, independent journalist, thank you for joining us tonight. Appreciate it. And that is the Ed Show on this Friday night. I'm Ed Schultz.
In New York on Thursday, November 29th, workers, labor activists, and their supporters launched a campaign to unionize some of the city's thousands of fast food employees. Strikes and pickets were held across the city and culminated with a 4 p.m. rally at Times Square. At 5 a.m., Daryl Young begins his regular commute to a McDonald's restaurant located on the corner of 40th Street and Madison Avenue. But instead of going to work today, he's joining 15 of his colleagues and dozens of supporters on the picket lines outside.
1, 2, 3, 4, time for you to pay more. 5, 6, 7, 8, don't you dare retaliate.
Young, a 26-year-old father of 2 young daughters, makes $7.75 an hour, only $16,000 a year. He relies on food stamps to make ends meet. He says he's going on strike to fight for a living wage.
Well, there's a lot of people that's in my situation is in a worse situation than what I am. And if this day come through, it will help them a lot too. You got people out here that have kids, that have families that they have to support. And we can't really do that with this low income.
We can't survive. 725. We can't.
Young says he joined the campaign called Fast Food Forward to fight for a raise to $15 an hour and for the right to join a union. The end goal is to improve the conditions for his family.
A better life, better home, more food on the table, more clothes. It's a lot more stuff that they need, you know, like we just now getting by. You know what I'm saying? And it's a struggle out here. You know what I'm saying? We have no help at all.
Another worker joining the strike is Raymond Lopez. He's also a full-time employee at McDonald's and has 2 other jobs to make ends meet.
I'm a shift manager there. I'm still making it to 85. I open store, I close store. There's a bunch of stuff they've taught me how to do and a bunch of classes I've taken. So when you think about all the work and all the pressure, all the stress, and everything I do, I really think I really do deserve more. And not just me, all the crew members as well.
Lopez and other workers say strong public support has helped ease their fears of employer retaliation.
Well, to be honest, like last night I was nervous. I didn't know what to expect. Now that I see that there's a lot of people supporting this, I feel a lot safer.
McDonald's representatives at the scene declined to comment, but provided FSRN with a written statement that said the franchise values its employees and welcomes their concerns or feedback. In addition to pickets and strikes at 2 other McDonald's locations in Harlem and Times Square, actions also took place at a Penn Station Burger King and 2 Kentucky Fried Chickens in Brooklyn. The Fast Food Forward campaign was launched by a coalition of community and faith-based organizations and the Service Employees International Union. It's the most ambitious effort ever undertaken to unionize workers at fast food restaurants.
Dozens of stores all over the city. Workers are walking out, are not coming in today to demand $15 an hour and the right to form a union. And we're here to make that happen.
Activists say it's one of the most ambitious bids to unionize workers at fast food restaurants. Jonathan Weston is an organizing director with New York Communities for Change. They've mobilized 40 organizers over the past several months to reach out to fast food workers across the city.
Our organizers and the workers themselves have been organizing these stores, have been talking to their co-workers, have been getting them to sign on to the campaign, and it's been long, grueling work, and will continue to be because management will resist and has resisted at several of the locations already.
Thursday's actions also come on the heels of victories for New York organized labor, including hot and crusty pizza workers recently winning the right to join a union. On Friday, labor activists will accompany striking workers back to their jobs to prevent workplace intimidation.
Overworked and underpaid. All we want is 15
Inequality is emerging as an enduring issue as activists push to hike the minimum wage and increase livable wages. The debate played out across the country today as organizers behind the Fight for 15, as it's known, used tax day to make their case.
Living on $8.75 an hour is very hard. I have to live in a shelter because I don't make enough money to pay rent here in New York City.
Fast food workers in New York were out at sunrise shouting their message. They're demanding a minimum wage of $15 an hour. What they earn now, the workers say, is not nearly enough to support their families. Organizers billed this latest strike by low-wage employees as the largest yet, planned for 230 U.S. cities and dozens more around the world.
I live from paycheck to paycheck, and I get paid every 2 weeks, and it's still not enough.
As the campaign continues, a number of cities have passed laws to require a higher minimum wage, if not as high as $15 an hour. In addition, big corporations like Walmart have also begun shifting their pay scales upward. McDonald's increased starting pay by $1 an hour at locations it owns, but that doesn't include franchisees, who operate 90% of its restaurants. The National Labor Relations Board is now considering whether to force McDonald's to accept more responsibility for those franchise-owned outlets. So what is at the root of all this? For that, we turn to Sadegh Ghebreselassie. She is senior staff attorney at the National Employment Law Project, which is connected with the Fight for 15. And Steve Caldera is the president and CEO of the International Franchise Association, a trade group that represents fast food restaurants like McDonald's, both at the corporate level and for franchise holders. Sadegh Ghebreselassie, I want to start by asking you how widespread these protests ended up being today.
They ended up being quite widespread, and not just because, workers protested in more than 230 cities around the world, but because for the first time we're seeing not just fast food workers striking, but we're seeing retail workers, we're seeing adjunct professors. These are part-time college faculty workers that are making poverty wages, that are making much less than $15 an hour. And we're seeing, just a growing groundswell of workers, of supporters saying, our minimum wage of $7.25 an hour, even the dollar increase that has been promised by some of these companies, is simply not enough to make ends meet.
Steve Caldera, how possible is what they're asking to accomplish?
First, I think it's important to state that I think what happened today was really less about the minimum wage and more about providing air cover for the Service Employees International Union, which has been behind all of these protests. I think there is no organic movement in our industry by food service workers. Just this past week, the Department of Labor, in forms filed by the SEIU, said they spent $18.5 million last year organizing these strikes. So to me, we can have the minimum wage debate. A lot of cities and municipalities and states have passed that, but it's really more about the unions trying to organize. Private sector union membership has gone from 35% approximately in the mid-50s to under 7% this year.
But my question was whether what they're asking for is even possible.
Look, I think 95% of quick service workers that start entry-level jobs, within 6 months they're making above $9 an hour. So we have to remember these are entry-level jobs for lesser skilled workers. Look, I started at a Burger King in college.
I'm going to let you get to you in a moment,
Yeah.
because what I want to ask you today, Ghebreselassie, really is whether first of all, obviously I want you to respond to what he just had to say, but how much of this is an effort to increase union engagement and membership at a time when unions are flagging?
First, let me first address what he was saying about entry-level. The fast food industry, is an industry where 70% are over the age of 20. Many of them have been working in fast food jobs for years, and that's because while the fast food industry may have been a stepping stone in past years toward a better paying job in a different industry, the fact of the matter is jobs in fast food, retail, home healthcare, childcare, some of the workers that were out on strike on today, those are the jobs that are disproportionately fueling job growth in our economy today. So we've got to figure out a way to raise pay in those industries. 42% of workers in this country make less than $15 an hour precisely because, as Steve was saying, unionization rates have gone down, which was a key way to raise the wage floor in our country. precisely because the minimum wage floor has so far eroded in its value. You know, at $7.25 an hour, that hasn't gone up since 2009.
So now it's my turn to ask you to answer the question I posed, which is whether this is about union organization.
This is about unions helping workers raise pay, which is traditionally something that unions and other worker organizations do. I mean, that is the job. That is the job, to raise wages and working conditions for members and non-members alike. And that's why part of what has been fed through this fast food movement over the last 2 years is the fact that we've seen state after state and now city after city raise the minimum wage through policy. That is a direct effect of the organizing that's been happening on the ground.
And in fact, Steve Caldera, we have seen Walmart, TJ Maxx, we've seen Target agree to raise their wages. I guess the question is, what is the difference with fast food with the fast food industry? Is it the franchise problem where so few of the actual outlets are owned by the company itself?
Well, McDonald's, Target, Walmart legally have the right to raise the wages of their employees in the corporate environment. I think the big distinction here is that franchisees put their own skin in the game. They're independently owned. They have the right to hire, to fire, to set wages. They process their own payroll. They're given an employer identification number by the Internal Revenue Service. These are the people that create the jobs in all 435 congressional districts across the country. And they've been dealing with a more regulatory environment, higher taxes through the fiscal cliff deal, high commodity costs. And I think today brought up a good point. Part of the reason why you see folks staying in these jobs longer is because of the lack of a pro-growth agenda coming out of Washington. And it's just not the administration, it's also Congress. We need to do things in this country that enable small business job growth. 2/3 of all net new jobs in this country come from small businesses, as opposed to stifling small business job creation.
Ms. Gebrselassie,
when you talk to small business owners, the number one reason they cite for the reason why they can't grow the way that they want to is lack of consumer demand. Consumers can't spend what they don't have. And when you're making $7.25 an hour, when you are a 50-year-old fast food worker that has been making a minimum wage for the last 20 years, that is forced to rely on public assistance to make ends meet because half of fast food workers are forced to do so, then you can't spend. And that stifles economic growth for all of us. I think that what we learned in the economic recession and the resulting recovery is that if we want a recovery that is sustainable and that works for all Americans, then we have to figure out a way to rebuild the middle class. And the way to do that is to raise wages. We are in an economy right now where wages have stagnated or declined for the bottom 70% of the entire workforce.
Let me ask you both finally. And I'm trying to looking for a middle ground here. So if you were to say, Steve Caldera, that it's $15, especially for franchisees whose skin is in the game, is out of the market. You just can't do that. What is it that these companies can be doing to speak to the kind of concerns that today was just mentioned?
I think the franchisees need to have flexibility. It's all about supply and demand. So if Walmart, Target, and McDonald's are raising the wages at the corporate level, there's a reason why they're competing for workers. I think it needs to be left up to the franchisee, who, by the way, wants to attract, develop, and retain great employees. So I think they need to be given the flexibility based on where are they situated, what is the climate and the economic environment where they do business, because they want to do right by their employees.
And today, Gebrselassie, is there a middle ground here?
Yeah, I mean, I agree that franchisees need some flexibility, and one way to give them that flexibility so that they can raise wages is for the corporate franchisor, like McDonald's, to maybe lessen some of the fees that they're forcing the franchisees to kick back to them. I mean, McDonald's posted $5 billion in profit last year, so the argument that there is not money in the corporation to trickle down to raise wages and improve working conditions for their workers rings hollow.
Today, Gebrselassie of the National Employment Law Project, Steve Caldera of the International Franchise Association. Thank you both very much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
I'm Jessel Noor here in front of Johns Hopkins Hospital in Baltimore. It's the top hospital in the nation, but for the past several months, the lowest paid workers here and hospital management have been locked in a contract negotiation. A deal was reached at 2 a.m. last night. It still needs to be ratified by the workers, represented by 1199 SEIU, of all the workers here.
You are the architects. You are the architects of the change that needs to happen in this country.
They told us on the first day, $15, you'll never see it. We see it. It's there. They told us no, that the contract took their breath away. Well, they're still breathing.
During the campaign, the union highlighted the fact that Hopkins pays, quote, poverty wages, defined as an hourly wage below $14.91 for a single parent, for many of its workers. Food service worker Michelle Horton is one of them.
$11.35 an hour after 9 years. It's difficult being a single mother with 3 children, so my income is the only income, and I make do the best way I can with what I have.
Like many other workers we've interviewed during the contract negotiations, Horton says she makes so little that in fact she cannot afford to include her children on her Hopkins insurance.
My children, they receive medical assistance from the government that provides their health care. For a family, which would be myself, including my 3 children, that's $98 every 2 weeks. With what I make, that's just...
They'll take that out of your paycheck.
Take that out every 2 weeks. And with what I make, that's just simply too much money coming out.
Insurance premiums will increase during the length of the tentative contract. In 2015 and 2016, the increase will be 2% and can be no more than 5% annually during the remainder of the contract. Johns Hopkins did not respond for a comment for the story, but previously told us in June they could not afford to pay what the workers were asking for. The hospital had been offering less than the union said it was willing to accept. The union says in May the hospital's offer stood at a 1.75% wage increase a year for 5 years. This tentative contract, which is up for a vote Thursday and Friday, grants all workers a 2% annual raise with a 0.5% bonus in the first year and an additional 0.75% increase in 2017. It also establishes a $15 minimum wage for workers with more than 20 years of experience and a $14.50 hour minimum wage in 2015 for workers with 15 years experience. Additionally, the current starting wage of $10.71 an hour will be increased to $12.60 by the end of the 4.5-year contract. This does fall short of the original union demand of a base pay of $15 an hour. This is SEIU organizer and negotiator Carrietta Hires.
The tentative deal wasn't quite what we wanted, but it's so close to what we wanted because we said 15 by 15 by 15. That was the campaign. So what we wound up with was anyone for the first year of the contract, anyone with 20 years of service or more will automatically move to $15 an hour.
Although the tentative contract does not achieve the union's goals of lifting its workers out of the, quote, poverty wages, Hires says they did win hard-fought concessions.
We told them at the onset that out of the 2,100 people that we represent here, 1,375 made less than $15 an hour. By the end of this contract, at least 1,800 of those workers will be up. Not quite at $15 an hour, but making no less than $13 an hour. It was worth the struggle.
Bill Berry is a labor historian and the retired director of labor studies at the Community College of Baltimore County in Dundalk.
Well, I know the workers get a lot of credit because this has been a long, tough, grueling negotiation, kind of ground game. It's not spectacular stuff, but month after month, they really kept up the pressure, particularly having that 3-day strike.
He says he reserves final judgment on the contract until details are revealed in the upcoming days.
Hospital negotiations are very complicated because the normal activities to develop leverage, and leverage is what unions try to do to make the boss do what he doesn't want to do, are different in the hospital industries and public sector. Because the strike looks like you're hurting the patients and jeopardizing health care and things like that. So it's different from striking General Motors or Bethlehem Steel. So the workers get a lot of credit. And I know it's been a long, tough go for them.
Berry acknowledges the union faced significant challenges in achieving all of their goals.
One of the difficulties in this negotiations is that there is a big gap in wage rates between the highest paid member of the union and the lowest paid member. And the highly skilled people were getting market rates in the $27 to $30 an hour range, and the housekeepers who are much underappreciated in the healthcare. And I think I would say that they're as important as the surgeons, because if the hospital is not clean and sanitary, you'll get sicker from being in the hospital and you're out. And I think
Okay, guys, so fast food workers want to double their pay, $15 an hour. What do you think?
You know, workers in the food industry have historically been paid low. But when you're a waiter at a very nice restaurant, it's okay to make $1.10 an hour when you're pulling in $300, $400, $500 a night in tips. Nobody tips anyone at a fast food restaurant. And so they make the lowest wages you can make. And as the lady said in the package, they don't get health insurance, they don't get retirement, and it's very hard for them to make a living. And so the question becomes, at what point does the fast food industry break even on this thing and start losing money? And that's really the question. And Mustafa Tamiz, we'll start with you. And thank you so much for joining us this morning. I noticed that were you late for the interview that you did in the package there?
No, of course, I'm here and I'm glad to be here. I have no rebuttal.
So what becomes the point where the fast food industry says we can't raise wages anymore?
Well, I think this is the strike is not just about the fast food workers, but all Houstonians. Houstonians should support this because it's best for our economy. 70% of our GDP is in consumer spending. So if you raise the minimum wage, that money goes right back into our economy, creates more businesses, and it's really a fast-track way of getting out of this recession. If more hedge fund managers make hundreds of millions of dollars and put it in their offshore accounts, that doesn't help the economy. What helps the economy is raising the minimum wage.
You know, Jackie Bowley, the fast food industry makes billions upon billions of dollars a year. Every fast food restaurant is making a lot of money. What is the problem with raising those wages so that these fast food workers can buy cars, buy insurance, things like that?
Well, first of all, I mean, as we know, a lot of these franchises are independently owned. And so it takes a while for the independent owner to even make a profit or see the profit, even though the corporation may be making profit. I mean, they have to buy their marketing, buy their supplies, and so they're in debt for quite some time. And of course, our rates are going to be driven by the profit. But second of all, whenever we think of a fast food restaurant, it's usually an entry-level job. We know that it's not a place that hopefully you're going to stay for a while. But even so, there is a way for them to fast track. It's pretty easy to fast track in the fast food industry into management. So, you know, if you're complaining or you have a problem with the money you're making, apply your skills and try to move up. All right, and we're going to come back to that. We've got a lot more I want to talk about that, but I got to bring Sally in, monitoring the Facebook and Twitter accounts. I understand they're blowing up.
Yeah, we've got more than 100 comments in just about 10 minutes on this topic. Lillian says, good for the workers. Yes, it should be higher. It's not going to break this country if that happens with as many people who eat fast food. Layla says 15 is a little too much. If this does happen, I'm going to be getting me a job at McDonald's real quick. And then Tammy adds, the answer here is to make education more affordable, so if people want to make more money, they can get an education and do so.
Now let's, and those are all, I think, points that need to be discussed. Jackie, I think, makes a pretty valid point. These are independent owners. I own one McDonald's. I'm not making billions of dollars a year, and I can't afford in my little entity here to raise wages.
Well, I don't think that's accurate, right? First, average fast food worker is 28 years or older, so they're no longer young people. If you go through your drive-thru and look at the person on the other side, it's not a high school kid anymore. This is someone who has a family, who's trying to support not just themselves, but others. Two, you know, they may be independently owned, but I haven't met a McDonald's franchise cost millions of dollars to get in, and the profits of McDonald's are $5.5 billion. So it's not true that these are small business guys who are struggling. You know, if you're struggling, you can't buy a fast food restaurant. You know, these are false arguments. I think our country has moved. Half the jobs that we've created are, you know, minimum wage or lower. And this is drawing our economy down because wealth is floating to the top, and rather than more people making a little bit more money, few people are making a lot of money.
And Jackie Valley, we're going to have to leave it right there.
What do we want? When do we want it? What do we want? When do we want it?
The cost of living in Palm Beach County is too expensive for the kind of wages that they're paying our people.
We can't stop. This is only the beginning. We have to do it again and again and again, and we have to grow.
So we have to tell people about what we're doing and why we're doing it.
It is our duty to win.
It is our duty to win.
We have nothing to lose but our chains.
We have nothing to lose but our chains.
Get up! Get down! There's poverty wages in this town! Get up! Get down! There's poverty wages in this town!
You're showing us what it means to say you've had it with what they've done and that you're making a change.
We are standing united to let everyone know that we're looking for $15 and union rights. I believe that we will win! 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 I believe that we will win!
To walk in the shoes of those who don't have a livable wage is what we're all about. These are people who can't afford to put meals on the table for themselves and their children. When I try to buy fresh fruits and vegetables, they're more expensive than macaroni and cheese.
Right.
So I would be getting a less healthy diet because of the fact that I don't have the money.
Day in, day out. My mother had small jobs, always dreaming, always having big plans. Day in, day out. My mother had to tell me, I can't afford it, honey. I'm sorry, I don't have enough money. It's too much for my small hands.
We're going to advocate. We're going to do everything we can. This is my third time taking the minimum wage challenge. I'm going to take it every year until we start to move the pendulum on getting the wages higher.
The more money that a person earns, the more they will spend on their businesses and their community. Think about the last several years where there's been a growth by the fat cats, the rich and powerful, politically connected, where they have an increase in wealth of about 39% compared to working people that have had a reduction in their personal wealth by 7%. That is clearly the wrong direction.
We need you not only to support us, the workers, but to support the family who actually bring their kids to these daycare centers, and that might be their only meal for the day. I have parents has to work 2 and 3 jobs. They can't even see their kids.
We're here to challenge other people to join us in this challenge and the fight for 15. Once you experience something, you understand it better than when you read about it.
We're going in there, we're looking at what little we have, trying to buy toilet paper, eggs, beans, what we need for the week. And again, you know, it's an exercise. It's to try to draw attention to the fact that if somebody's earning the minimum wage full-time all year round, they're still below the federal poverty level.
That don't last for one day, that has to last the whole week. And then we only spend like $38, but you still got to get on the bus, you still got to get to work to make that money to pay for that. It's a struggle every day, and we have to live with that.
Honestly, I've never limited myself. When we do shopping in our house, I've been blessed, but it's not always been like that.
I'm thinking about tomorrow, because if I spend too much today, I got to worry more about tomorrow. And I talked to this gentleman here, he makes $8.05 an hour. A minimum wage of 15 would change his life. He has 3 kids, he has a wife, and just a couple weeks ago, they ran out of money, and he made noodles for his family. And I asked him,
noodles home, just emergency, you know, because sometimes we really don't have money to buy food.
And I asked him, how does it make you feel? And I think one of the words he used was, it shamed him, because he wants to provide for his family. He works 60 to 70 hours a week.
The truth of the matter is you know, on Monday I only ate 1 meal because it was my son's birthday, and I wanted to make sure it was a good meal. So I skipped breakfast and lunch to make sure that we were going to have a good birthday meal for him. With 3 kids, I could never meet that goal of $17 a day, and for folks to be able to do that, frankly, it's amazing, but it is also disturbing that they would have to.
I have to go to public assistance to pay my rent and to eat. Nobody, I'm a hard worker. I need to work.
Over the last 2 years, I've been homeless, and I was unable to do anything for myself because of the low wages that I get paid.
The response is...
I'm very excited to be here to read to you this story this morning. This is Brown Bear, what do you see?
It's time for America to have a discussion about the crisis in childcare, which has real impacts on all families all over the country. This is not a Connecticut issue. This is a nationwide issue.
The United States is the only industrialized country that still considers childcare to be a personal problem, to be solved by our own wits without public support.
I struggle with, do I pay my rent or do I get my children what they need? And as of right now, even with my paycheck, I'm still $10 short to have to pay my rent. But I have 2 children, one going into kindergarten and another one going into 1st grade. And I get this list from the school saying that my kids need these folders, they need crayons, they need this, they need that. I don't even have the $10 to pay my rent.
But they struggle just to pay $8 a week. And you see that when they come up to you Monday morning and they don't have tuition. And we don't kick them out, we keep them. Because this is where they need to be.
And the dirty little secret about this field is there is tremendous subsidy for it. It's on the backs of the teachers. That's who's subsidizing childcare in this country.
And parents, you have a right. You have a right to demand more from childcare. But we should be willing to pay workers more to reflect the greater responsibility. I'm proud to add my name to a resolution supported by SEIU and the Congressional Progressive Caucus. The resolution says and follows, we need to make affordable childcare a right for all working families. That means creating a system that makes childcare affordable. We need to improve the quality of services by guaranteeing workers a living wage of at least $15 an hour.
There's nothing more important in this world than the job of somebody that's caring for somebody that's 0 to 5 years old.